3 p.m. now, Cairo local time. It's a very good afternoon to our viewers and welcome to our English news bulletin. My name is Angie Meher, delighted to be in the company of my dear friend Shireen Aidel. Good afternoon to you, Shireen.
Good afternoon, Angie. Good afternoon, dear viewers. A short break and we'll be back with the headlines. President Fattah al-Sisi receives the presence of African constitutional and Supreme Courts. President al-Sisi receives executive head of U.S. company Concentrix. And thousands of Palestinians return to North Gaza after hostage breakthrough.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now the details in full. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received on Tuesday the presidents of the African Constitutional and Supreme Courts participating in the 8th conference organized by the Egyptian Constitutional Court for African Constitutional and Supreme Courts in the presence of the President of the Supreme Court, Constitutional Court Councillor Boulis Fahmy, and a number of the court judges. Presidential spokesperson said President al-Sisi welcomed the attendees and stressed Egypt's keenness on supporting the role of the judiciary in African communities. The president also lauded the pivotal role played by the Supreme Constitutional Courts of African states in activating the judicial protection for African citizens within the framework of the rule of constitutional legitimacy and achieving a balance between the rights and freedoms of citizens. For his part, the President of the Supreme Court Constitutional Court, Councillor Boulis Fahmy, expressed his appreciation to President al-Sisi for the continued support and hailed the President's keenness to maintain the Supreme Constitutional Court's role in Cairo, as well as activating cooperation amongst African judicial bodies in various fields.
President Fattah al-Sisi stressed keenness on providing a batch of investment incentives to attract international and local companies to operate in Egypt. Al-Sisi was speaking during a meeting with executive head of U.S. company Concentrix, Christopher Caldwell, in Cairo on Tuesday. The company pioneers in the field of outsourcing services and communication centers. The meeting was attended by Minister of Communication and Information Technology and Engineer Ahmed Zahir, the Executive Chief of the IT Industry Development Authority in the Ministry of Communications and IT, and Amr Subhi, head of Concentrix Egypt. The presidency spokesman said that during the meeting, Sisi hailed the expansion of the company in Egypt, adding that it comes in line with the state's keenness on boosting infrastructure in the fields of communications and information technology. Ambassador Mohammed Shinawi said Sisi said that the state has launched a number of training programs to boost and develop capabilities of cadres in the digital field in order to prepare the youth for the labor market in this field. He said the state is keen on providing investment incentives to attract international and local companies to work in Egypt in order to improve level of provided services and raise competitiveness in the resourcing industry within Digital Egypt strategy. Ambassador Shinawi said during the meeting the company's senior officials reviewed its plan to expand in Egypt and create various job opportunities in the fields.
A high-ranking senior source refuted circulating news that claims the phone call took place between President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and U.S. President Donald Trump. The source said any call with President al-Sisi is announced according to regulations as well as heads of state. The source called for accuracy in reporting news, especially with such a high-level call and at such a delicate timing in light of the significant ties between the presidents of the two states.
And the biggest Egyptian humanitarian aid convoy arrived in Rafah in northern Sinai, preparing to enter Gaza. Officials said the convoy includes 305 trucks carrying 4,200 tons of food, aid and humanitarian and medical supplies, as well as 11 equipped ambulances. They said the Long Live Egypt Fund prepared the convoy in cooperation with the civil society institutions. Head of project sector in Long Live Egypt Fund said all parties should join efforts to guarantee swift and effective delivery of aid to Gazans. He said there is coordination between the Egyptian and Palestinian Red Crescent societies for this purpose.
The Palestinian Foreign Ministry praised the upstanding position by Arab states, regional and international organizations for rejecting the Palestinian displacement or encouraging Palestinians' transfer or their uprooting from their land under any pretext or justification. Foreign Ministry has called on all states to affirm their absolute rejection of all forms of displacement of the Palestinian people and to support their national rights to establish their independent Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital.
And thousands of displaced Palestinians were returning to the north of the war-ravaged Gaza after Hamas reached a deal for the release of another 6 hostages. The Israeli occupation government said that 8 of the hostages held in Gaza who were due for release in the truce's first phase are dead. The ceasefire and hostage release deal between Hamas and Israeli occupation is intended to bring an end to more than 15 months of Israeli aggression on Gaza. The Israeli occupation had prevented Palestinians from returning to northern Gaza, accusing Hamas of violating terms of truce, but Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said late Sunday they would be allowed to pass after a new agreement was reached. Hamas had said blocking the returns amounted to a truce violation. Earlier, the government in Gaza said more than 300,000 displaced had returned during the day to governorates of the north and area of Gaza severely battered by Israeli aggression.
The Palestinian group Jihad released a video of the Israeli hostage Arbel Yehud, who's due to be released on Thursday. In the 1-minute video, the hostage appears and states her identity and the date of January 25th before calling on the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do everything in his power to secure the release of the remaining hostages in Gaza.
An Israeli occupation airstrike killed 2 Palestinians in the city of Tulkarem, underscoring Israeli renewed aggression in the occupied West Bank since the start of the ceasefire in Gaza. Hamas resistance group said the 2 killed on Monday were members of its armed wing, the Engineered. Further north, a major operation with hundreds of Israeli occupation troops backed by armored vehicles, drones and helicopters looked set to go into its second week with smoke rising above the refugee camp adjacent to the city. Armored bulldozers and diggers have destroyed buildings and roads in the camp, a crowded township built for descendants of Palestinians who fled or were forced from their homes by Israeli gangs in 1948, and thousands of people have left their homes. At least 16 Palestinians have been killed in Jenin and surrounding areas since the start of the new aggression a week ago.
Firing by Israeli occupation forces killed 2 people and wounded 17 in the second day of deadly protests in southern Lebanon as residents displaced by the 14-month war between Israel and Hezbollah attempted to return to villages where Israeli troops remain. The shooting came a day after 24 people were killed and more than 130 wounded when Israeli occupation forces opened fire on protesters who breached roadblocks set up along the border. Under a U.S.-brokered ceasefire on November 27th, Israeli forces were to withdraw from southern Lebanon and Hezbollah was to move north of the Litani River by January 26th. While the Lebanese army and UN peacekeepers had already deployed in several villages before the deadline, Israel remained in over a dozen villages.
Russia's army said Tuesday its forces had captured a large village in Ukraine's northeastern Kharkiv region, the latest territorial gain for Moscow's advancing troop. Overnight Russian air attacks wounded 8 people, set a private business on fire and damaged residential buildings around Ukraine. Ukraine's Air Force said it shot down 65 drones and 28 more did not reach their targets in the barrage. Ukraine's State Emergency Service said the fire engulfed production facilities.
The Brazilian government summoned the top U.S. envoy to Brasilia to explain the denigrating treatment meted out to deported migrants who arrived back home last week. The summons comes a day after a major flare-up over migrant repatriations from the U.S. to Colombia. According to Brazil's federal police, the flight was the second this year from the U.S. carrying undocumented migrants returned to Brazil, and the first since Trump took office last week.
And back home, the Cairo International Book Fair was held under the slogan, "Read in the Beginning was the Word," at the Egypt International Exhibition Center in New Cairo.
1,345 publishers and official Egyptian, Arab and foreign authorities are participating in the book fair this year. New edition also witnesses the participation of 10 new countries for the first time. We have more details in this report.
Cairo International Book Fair has attracted a high number of visitors since its opening on Friday. Egypt's Minister of Culture, Ahmed Fouad, toured the 56th edition of the fair on Saturday, praising the public turnout, particularly families. The fair continues until 5th of February at Egypt International Exhibition Center in New Cairo, organized by the Egyptian General Book Authority headed by Ahmed Bahayuddin. The fair's theme is "Read in the beginning was the world." The minister's tour included visits to several publisher and exhibitor pavilions such as Al-Azhar, the Ministry of Defense, the Administrative Control Authority, and Ministry of Culture. He also visited the Discounted Foreign Books Pavilion in New Edition, organized in partnership with Sharjah Book Authority. He expressed his satisfaction with the visitors' numbers, describing the fair as a cultural, intellectual destination reflecting Egyptians' love of culture. He stated that this edition embodies Egypt's cultural standing and its leading role in promoting culture and knowledge, expressing hope for the fair's continued success. The purpose of the minister's tour was to assess the fair's operations and monitor services for publishers and visitors. On Friday, the first day, the Ministry of Culture announced 500,000 attendees. Visitors flocked to the fairgrounds from the early hours to participate in cultural and artistic activities and to purchase publications on diverse subjects for participating publishing houses and the Ministry of Culture's pavilions. Egyptian families, along with Arab and international visitors, attended the opening day of the annual event. This year, the Ministry of Culture launched the Million Books Initiative, aiming to donate 1 million books across various categories and for different age groups throughout Egypt. This initiative aims to improve public awareness and cognitive skills. The fair features 1,345 publishing houses from 80 countries and 6,150 exhibitors. New participating countries this year include Chile, Belgium, Congo, Bulgaria, and Austria, adding to the fair's cultural diversity. And Lieutenant General Kamel Al-Wazir, Deputy Prime Minister for Industrial Development and Minister of Transport and Industry, discussed on Tuesday with Minister of Investment and Foreign Trade Hassan Al-Khatib regulations of constructing private new free trade areas. During the meeting, Al-Wazir asserted the ministry's keenness to upgrade the free investment area and enlarging it as it represents a unique investment point for the facilities in procedures applied in issuing permits. He highlighted that the ministry had identified 23 flourishing industry aiming at encouraging investors to pump more investments.
And with this final item, wrap up the afternoon's English News Bulletin. You're in the company of myself, Angie Meher, and Shireen Adil. Thank you very much, Shireen.
Thank you, Angie. Thank you, dear viewers.